Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, we are diving into a psychological thriller filled with suspense, secrets, and unexpected twists, Never Lie, by Freida McFadden. This novel takes us into the eerie world of a seemingly innocent house filled with dark truths that slowly unravel, keeping us on the edge of our seats. As always, we will break down the story in detail, exploring every twist and turn without examples or bullet points. Let's begin. The novel starts with Tricia and Ethan, a newlywed couple, searching for their dream home. The story is told from Tricia's perspective, allowing readers to experience the unfolding mystery through her eyes. The couple is on their way to view an isolated house, a grand but ominous mansion that once belonged to Dr. Adrienne Hale, a renowned psychiatrist who mysteriously disappeared years ago. The house is remote, surrounded by a dense forest, and the weather adds to the unsettling atmosphere as a snowstorm approaches. Upon arriving, Tricia and Ethan are immediately struck by the house's beauty and eerie stillness. The mansion has an old-fashioned yet luxurious feel, with grand staircases, intricate woodwork, and rooms filled with remnants of its previous owner's life. As the snowstorm intensifies, they realize they are trapped, unable to leave due to the worsening conditions. With no phone service and the realtor nowhere to be found, they have no choice but to spend the night in the house. As Tricia explores, she becomes increasingly uneasy. There is something off about the house, an unshakable presence, a sense that someone is watching. She begins to uncover small but unsettling clues about Adrienne Hale's past, including locked doors, hidden compartments, and personal belongings left untouched. While Ethan is captivated by the mansion and its potential, Tricia's instincts tell her that something is wrong. The tension builds when Tricia stumbles upon a hidden room containing cassette tapes. These tapes, neatly labeled with the names of patients, were recordings of Dr. Hale's therapy sessions. Curiosity gets the better of her, and she begins listening, drawn into the intimate and disturbing confessions of Adrienne's former patients. However, as she delves deeper, she realizes that one voice stands out, one patient whose words feel chillingly relevant to her own life. This is just the beginning of a dark and twisted journey. Secrets buried within the walls of the mansion begin to surface, and the question arises, what really happened to Adrienne Hale? Tricia sits in the dimly lit room, the cassette tapes spread before her like pieces of a puzzle waiting to be solved. The old tape recorder crackles as she presses play, her fingers trembling slightly. The first few recordings seem like ordinary therapy sessions, patients discussing their fears, anxieties, and personal struggles with Dr. Adrienne Hale. But as Tricia listens, she begins to sense something more sinister lurking beneath the surface. Each patient's voice is distinct, but one in particular stands out, a woman whose tone is both fragile and unsettling. The more Tricia listens, the more she realizes that this woman's confessions seem eerily connected to Adrienne Hale's disappearance. The patient speaks of secrets she cannot share, of a darkness she cannot escape, and of a betrayal that will never be forgiven. The words send a chill through Tricia, as if the woman is speaking directly to her. Meanwhile, Ethan remains oblivious to Tricia's growing unease. He is fascinated by the house, already envisioning their future within its walls. He dismisses her concerns, attributing them to the stress of house hunting and the claustrophobia of being snowed in. But Tricia cannot shake the feeling that something is terribly wrong. She feels watched, as if the house itself holds a consciousness, aware of her every move. As the night progresses, strange occurrences escalate. A door that was firmly shut now stands ajar. Shadows shift in the corners of her vision. The wind howls outside, but inside, the silence is oppressive. Tricia convinces herself that it is just paranoia, a natural response to being trapped in an unfamiliar place with such an eerie history. But when she finds a diary hidden beneath a loose floorboard in the study, her fears solidify into something far more tangible. The diary belongs to Adrienne Hale. The entries are fragmented, filled with cryptic references to a patient she feared, someone she believed was capable of unimaginable things. The deeper Tricia reads, the more apparent it becomes that Adrienne was afraid for her life in the days leading up to her disappearance. The pieces begin to connect. The mysterious patient on the tapes, Adrienne's frantic diary entries, and the unexplained disappearance, It all points to something much darker than Tricia or Ethan could have anticipated. But before Tricia can fully process what she has discovered, she hears something, a sound that does not belong in an empty house. A faint creaking echoes from the hallway. She is no longer sure they are alone. Tricia freezes, holding her breath as the soft creaking sound echoes down the dimly lit hallway. Her pulse quickens. The house is supposed to be empty, just her and Ethan, trapped by the relentless snowstorm. But the sound is unmistakable. Someone or something is moving. She quietly closes Adrienne Hale's diary and tucks it under her arm, her hands shaking. She glances at Ethan, who is in another room, completely unaware of the eerie disturbance. He is still absorbed in the house's features, dismissing her growing fear as paranoia. But Tricia knows what she heard. Gripping a flashlight, she cautiously steps out of the study and into the hallway, her footsteps muffled by the plush carpet. The shadows cast by the flickering light make the space feel smaller, the air heavier. Every closed door suddenly feels ominous, as if something waits behind each one, watching. She follows the sound, leading her toward the grand staircase. The house groans with age, but this sound is different, deliberate. She hesitates before taking another step. The darkness beyond the staircase yawns like a void, and for a moment, she questions whether she should turn back. But then, another creak. This time, closer. Just as she steels herself to investigate further, Ethan's voice startles her. He has come looking for her, his face a mixture of concern and mild annoyance. She tells him about the noises, about the strange feeling that someone else is inside the house. He sighs, clearly skeptical, but he agrees to check the rooms with her to ease her mind. Together, they move from room to room, opening doors, peering inside. Each room is just as they left it, silent, undisturbed. But when they reach the master bedroom, Tricia's heart stops. The closet door is open. She is certain it was closed earlier. The space beyond is dark, deep, filled with neatly hung clothing that once belonged to Adrienne Hale. But something feels off. The air is heavier, as if someone had been standing there moments ago. Ethan shrugs it off, insisting that she must have left it open, but Tricia knows better. She knows the feeling of being watched, the way the atmosphere shifts when someone else is near. She doesn't argue, though. There's no proof, just a nagging intuition that refuses to let go. Trying to shake off the unease, she returns to the study and continues listening to the tapes. The patient's voice becomes more agitated, more distressed. She speaks of a dangerous obsession, of someone who cannot be trusted. Tricia rewinds, listening again, and then again. Something about the way the patient speaks sends a shiver down her spine. It sounds familiar. Then, realization strikes. The patient is not just talking about Adrienne Hale. She is talking about herself. And what she says next changes everything. Tricia's fingers tremble as she rewinds the tape, her mind racing. The patient's voice, distressed, unstable, echoes through the room. Each sentence is laced with desperation, a warning wrapped in cryptic words. Tricia listens closely, trying to understand the full weight of what is being revealed. The woman on the tape speaks of an overwhelming obsession, a presence in her life that she cannot escape. Her voice fluctuates between fear and anger, as if she is both terrified of someone and deeply connected to them. She talks about being manipulated, about losing control, about the unbearable feeling of being watched, even in the safety of her own home. Then, a chilling phrase cuts through the static. She never saw it coming. Tricia's breath catches. The woman isn't just speaking about herself, she's speaking about Adrienne Hale. Suddenly, everything shifts. The missing psychiatrist, the hidden tapes, the eerie atmosphere of the house, it all begins to make sense. Adrienne Hale wasn't just treating a troubled patient. She was afraid of her. She knew something was wrong, that something terrible was about to happen. Tricia frantically searches the diary again, flipping through its pages, looking for any connection between the patient and Adrienne's fate. The final entries are scattered thoughts, disjointed, almost as if Adrienne knew she was running out of time. She won't stop. She's watching. I have to do something before it's too late. Tricia's stomach twists as the words sink in. Adrienne was trying to protect herself. But from whom? The answer comes in an instant, a name whispered on the tape, spoken by the patient in a moment of weakness. Tricia replays it, heart pounding. The static distorts the sound slightly, but there is no mistaking it. The patient was not just another anonymous voice. It's someone Tricia knows. Before she can react, a loud crash echoes through the house. She whirls around, her pulse skyrocketing. The sound came from downstairs. Something heavy has fallen, been knocked over. And in the suffocating silence that follows, she hears it. Footsteps. Deliberate. Measured. Someone is in the house with them. Tricia's blood turns ice cold as the footsteps echo from downstairs. The house is supposed to be empty, just her and Ethan. But now, someone else is here. She holds her breath, straining to listen. The steps aren't rushed. They are slow, calculated. Whoever is in the house isn't panicking. They are moving with purpose. Ethan rushes into the study, his eyes scanning Tricia's face. She doesn't have to say anything, he's heard it too. They exchange a silent look, and without a word, he grabs the closest thing that could serve as a weapon, an old brass candlestick from the shelf. They move cautiously toward the doorway. The house, once eerily quiet, now feels suffocatingly loud. Every creak of the floorboards, every shifting shadow, sends a jolt of fear through Tricia's chest. Then, a voice. Low. Unfamiliar. I know you're up there. Tricia's breath catches in her throat. It's a man's voice. Calm. Confident. Not shouting, not searching, just stating. As if he already knows exactly where they are. Ethan motions for Tricia to stay behind him as they inch toward the staircase. He peers down into the darkness below. The dim glow from the old chandelier barely illuminates the entryway. And then they see him. A figure stands near the front door. He is partially hidden in shadow, but Tricia can make out the outline of his form. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Wearing dark clothes. And he is holding something. A bag. He sets it down slowly, his movements deliberate. You shouldn't be here, he says. His voice is eerily steady, devoid of any emotion. Tricia's heart slams against her ribcage. Who is he? How did he get in? And, most terrifying of all, what does he want? She opens her mouth to speak, but Ethan beats her to it. Who the hell are you? He demands, gripping the candlestick tightly. The man chuckles softly. A sound that sends chills up Tricia's spine. Funny, the stranger says. I was just about to ask you the same thing. Tricia's hands are shaking now. The air in the room is suffocating. Every instinct in her body is screaming at her to run, to hide, to do anything but stand there. And then the man takes a step forward. Tricia's pulse pounds in her ears as the man steps forward. The dim light of the chandelier finally illuminates his face. She studies his features, searching for any hint of recognition. But she doesn't know him. Or at least, she doesn't think she does. Ethan tightens his grip on the candlestick, his stance tense, ready to react. Who are you? Ethan repeats, his voice low, controlled. The man tilts his head, his expression unreadable. I should ask you the same thing, he says again. His gaze flickers to Tricia. You shouldn't be here. Tricia glances at Ethan, trying to steady her breathing. We got stuck in the storm, she says, forcing her voice to remain even. We didn't know anyone else would be here. The man doesn't respond right away. Instead, he watches them, as if deciding whether to believe them. The silence stretches unbearably long. Then, he exhales sharply and shifts his weight, his stance relaxing slightly. You have no idea what this house is, do you? He mutters. Tricia exchanges a quick look with Ethan. What do you mean? She asks. The man gives a humorless laugh. Of course, you don't. No one ever does. The way he says it, the finality in his voice, sends an uneasy feeling crawling up Tricia's spine. "Why are you here?" Ethan demands, his patience wearing thin. The man hesitates before finally answering. "I came back to find something," he says. "Something that belongs to me." His eyes flick toward the study. Toward the tapes. Tricia's breath catches. He knows about Adrienne Hale's recordings. She instinctively steps in front of the study door, as if she can shield what they've discovered. The man notices. His lips press into a thin line. "You've been listening, haven't you?" he asks. Tricia doesn't answer, but she knows the look on her face betrays her. "Then you already know," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. "You know what she did." A deep sense of dread washes over her. Because the way he says it, it's not a question. It's a warning. Tricia's breath comes in short, shallow gasps. The stranger's words hang in the air, thick with meaning. "You know what she did." The room seems to shrink around her. She glances at Ethan, his jaw tight, his muscles coiled with tension. "What are you talking about?" Ethan asks, his voice sharp. The man steps closer, his dark eyes locking onto Tricia's. "Adrienne Hale," he says. "You've heard the tapes, haven't you?" Tricia's fingers dig into the wooden doorframe behind her. She doesn't want to admit it, but there's no point in lying now. He already knows. She nods. The man exhales slowly. "Then you know she wasn't who people thought she was," he murmurs. Tricia swallows hard. She has listened to hours of Adrienne's recorded therapy sessions, each one more disturbing than the last. The famous psychiatrist, admired, respected, was hiding something. A deep, dark secret buried within the walls of this very house. The man studies her expression. "Did you hear the last tape?" he asks. Tricia hesitates. "No." Something flickers across his face. "Then you don't know the whole story." A shiver runs through her. Adrienne's voice, cold and analytical, still lingers in her mind. The way she spoke about her patients, about manipulation and control. About the people who trusted her. "What's on the last tape?" she asks. The man exhales sharply, shaking his head. "You need to hear it for yourself." Tricia and Ethan exchange a glance. The study. The tapes. The answers are there. Without another word, she turns and rushes into the study. Her hands tremble as she sorts through the remaining cassette tapes, searching frantically for the final one. And then she finds it. The last tape. She slides it into the player, pressing down on the button. The wheels inside begin to turn, and the familiar crackle of Adrienne's voice fills the room. Only this time Adrienne doesn't sound like a psychiatrist analyzing a patient. She sounds afraid. Her breath is uneven, her words rushed. "If you're listening to this, then something has happened to me." Tricia's stomach clenches. Ethan moves closer, his eyes locked on the cassette player. Adrienne continues, her voice a whisper now. "He knows. He's coming for me. And I don't think I'll survive." Tricia's entire body goes rigid. The recording crackles again. And then Adrienne says something that makes her blood run cold. "I should never have trusted him." A pause. "Never, ever trust Ethan." Tricia's hands feel numb as the tape crackles on, Adrienne's final words repeating in her mind. "Never, ever trust Ethan." Her gaze snaps to her husband, searching his face for some kind of reaction. But Ethan remains completely still. Too still. What is this?" she whispers, her voice barely above a breath. Ethan finally moves, his jaw tightening. "That doesn't mean anything." Tricia doesn't believe him. Adrienne's voice continues from the tape, shaky but urgent. "He's dangerous. I didn't see it at first. But I know now. And if I disappear, he's the reason why." Tricia's pulse pounds in her ears. Every memory, every moment with Ethan, suddenly feels like a puzzle piece she's been forcing into the wrong place. Ethan steps toward her. Turn it off. She flinches. He notices. His eyes darken. The tape keeps playing. Adrienne's breath is ragged. He knows what I've done. And I know what he's done. Tricia's fingers tremble over the stop button, but she doesn't press it. Ethan exhales sharply. You don't think I... Did you? She blurts out, stepping back. Ethan, did you kill her? His mouth opens, then closes. He doesn't answer. Tricia's stomach twists. Oh my God. Ethan's expression hardens. That's not what happened. Then tell me what did, she shouts. The storm outside rages against the windows. The dim light flickers. The house, Adrienne's house, feels like it's closing in around them. The tape hisses, the recording nearing its end. And then Adrienne's voice returns, lower, almost pleading. If you're listening to this, I'm probably gone. But please, whoever you are, don't let him get away with it. Tricia's breath catches. Silence. The tape ends. She looks at Ethan. And Ethan looks at her. A tense moment stretches between them, the weight of the truth pressing down. Then, without a word, Ethan lunges. Tricia barely has time to react, before Ethan lunges toward her. His face is unreadable, his eyes locked onto hers with a chilling intensity. Her instincts kick in, and she stumbles backward, her fingers gripping the edge of the table for support. Ethan, stop, she shouts, but he doesn't listen. He grabs her wrist. She jerks away, heart pounding. Let me go. But Ethan's grip tightens. His voice is eerily calm. You're scared because you don't understand. Let me explain. Tricia shakes her head, her mind racing. The house is isolated, surrounded by the raging storm. There's no one around for miles. No one to hear her scream. The realization slams into her. She is trapped. Her eyes dart toward the front door, but Ethan notices. His grip tightens further. You don't need to leave. Tricia's breath comes in short gasps. The tape's final words echo in her head, don't let him get away with it. Did you kill her? She asks again, her voice trembling. Ethan doesn't answer immediately. The silence stretches between them, thick and suffocating. Then, he exhales sharply. It's not what you think. His fingers loosen slightly on her wrist, and she takes her chance. With all her strength, she yanks free and shoves him backward. He stumbles, caught off guard, and she bolts. The storm howls as she sprints toward the door, her breath ragged. She fumbles with the lock, her fingers slipping. Behind her, Ethan recovers. Tricia, don't do this. She twists the lock, but it won't budge. Footsteps. Fast. Getting closer. Her pulse pounds in her ears. She turns, her back pressed against the door. Ethan stands a few feet away, breathing heavily. His expression is unreadable, but something flickers in his eyes. Something dangerous. You need to listen to me. Tricia shakes her head. You need to tell me the truth. He steps closer. She grips the doorknob. Adrienne didn't just disappear, did she? Ethan doesn't move. The house creaks. The storm rages. And then, finally, he speaks. No. She didn't. Tricia's stomach drops. She was right. And now, she's next. Tricia's entire body goes cold at Ethan's confession. The weight of his words crashes over her like a tidal wave, leaving her gasping for air. What did you do to her? Her voice is barely above a whisper. Ethan exhales, rubbing a hand over his face. It's complicated. No, it's not, she snaps, her back still pressed against the locked door. Either you killed her, or you didn't. His jaw clenches. His hesitation speaks louder than words. Tricia's mind races, trying to piece everything together. Adrienne's voice from the tapes, her warnings, her desperation. The eerie emptiness of the house, the missing furniture, the storm that had trapped them here. It all makes sense now. Ethan didn't want to come here just to look at the house. He wanted to make sure nothing was left behind. I need to know the truth, Ethan, she presses. If you love me, you'll tell me. He flinches at the word love. For a split second, guilt flashes across his face. Then, he nods, stepping closer, his voice lowering. Adrienne wasn't who you think she was. Tricia doesn't move. What does that mean? He sighs. She wasn't some innocent woman who just disappeared. She had secrets, Tricia. Dark ones. Tricia's heart slams against her ribs. So do you. Ethan's mouth presses into a thin line. I didn't kill her. Tricia doesn't believe him. Then where is she? Silence. A flash of lightning illuminates the room, casting eerie shadows across Ethan's face. I don't know, he finally admits. She left that night. I swear. Tricia shakes her head. That's not what she said on the tape. Ethan's expression hardens. She lied. A shiver runs down Tricia's spine. Who was really lying? Adrienne or Ethan? Before she can say another word, a loud bang echoes from upstairs. Tricia's breath catches in her throat. She and Ethan freeze. There shouldn't be anyone else in the house. The noise comes again. Louder this time. Something, or someone, is up there. And suddenly, Tricia realizes the storm isn't the only thing trapping them in this house. They are not alone. Tricia's blood turns to ice. The sound wasn't just the house settling. It was deliberate. A slow, heavy thump. Upstairs. Ethan hears it too. His entire body tenses, his eyes snapping toward the dark hallway leading to the staircase. Tricia swallows hard. Ethan, we're alone, right? Ethan doesn't answer. Another thump. Louder. Closer. The air in the room thickens, suffocating, as Tricia's pulse pounds in her ears. Who's up there? She whispers. Ethan exhales sharply, his voice tense. Stay here. He turns, moving toward the staircase. Tricia grabs his arm. Are you insane? She hisses. We should leave. His eyes flick to hers. The storm, remember? Even if we get outside, we're stuck in the middle of nowhere. She knows he's right. The roads are impassable. No phone signal. No help coming. And yet, she'd rather take her chances out in the storm than inside this house, with a possible murderer and something lurking upstairs. Another bang. It's not the wind. It's footsteps. Someone, or something, is moving on the second floor. Ethan reaches the bottom of the stairs. His hand hovers over the railing. Tricia's breath catches. Don't. But he ignores her. He takes the first step. The wood creaks under his weight. Then another. And another. Tricia watches, frozen in place, her nails digging into her palms. Then, just as Ethan reaches the halfway point. Bang. A door slams upstairs. Tricia jumps, her heart hammering. Ethan stops, his body rigid. A long silence stretches between them. Then, so quietly, Tricia almost doesn't hear it. A voice. Faint. Whispering. Coming from one of the rooms above. Tricia clamps a hand over her mouth, stifling a scream. Ethan turns his head slightly, meeting her eyes. Did you hear that? He mouths. She nods. Her entire body trembles. Because the whispering isn't just a sound. It's a name. Being repeated. Over. And over. Ethan. 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 Tricia's breath shudders as the whispering grows louder. Ethan's name, repeated over and over, echoes through the hallway upstairs. Then, silence. Ethan's grip tightens on the railing. Stay here. Tricia shakes her head. No way. But Ethan doesn't wait. He climbs the last few steps, vanishing into the darkness. Tricia forces herself to follow. Every instinct screams at her to run, but she can't leave. Not yet. At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretches before her, doors lining both sides. One of them is slightly open. Ethan steps toward it. Tricia swears she hears breathing from inside. Ethan pushes the door open. The room is empty. But something is wrong. A single chair sits in the middle of the room. On it, an old cassette recorder. Tricia's stomach lurches. Ethan steps closer and presses play. A voice crackles through the speaker. Adrienne. If you're hearing this, then he got away with it. Tricia's knees nearly buckle. Adrienne's voice is strained, desperate. I should have left. I should have known he would do this to me. Ethan's face is unreadable, but his hands clench into fists. Tricia inches away from him. Tell me the truth, Ethan. He exhales sharply. I told you. I didn't kill her. The tape continues. I know he's coming for me. But I won't let him win. Static crackles. Then, a whisper. If you're listening, run. The tape clicks off. A floorboard creaks behind them. Tricia spins. But it's too late. A shadowy figure lunges from the hallway. Tricia screams. Ethan is knocked to the ground. In the chaos, Tricia sees a flash of long, dark hair. A pale face. Wild eyes. Adrienne. Alive. Ethan gasps, struggling beneath her weight. You're dead. Adrienne grips something in her hand. A knife. Not yet. She raises it. Tricia grabs the recorder and hurls it. It smashes against Adrienne's head. Adrienne stumbles, the knife clattering to the floor. Ethan scrambles away. Tricia grabs his arm, yanking him toward the door. Run. They tear down the stairs, Adrienne's footsteps pounding behind them. The storm howls outside. The wind rattles the windows. The front door won't budge. Adrienne's voice rings out. You won't escape me. A loud crack echoes through the house. The ceiling groans, then collapses. Darkness swallows everything. Tricia awakens to daylight streaming through the wreckage. The storm is over. She groans, pushing debris off her body. Ethan lies motionless beside her. Adrienne is nowhere to be seen. Police sirens wail in the distance. Tricia's hands tremble as she pulls herself up. Did Adrienne survive? Or was she buried beneath the rubble? She doesn't know. And maybe she never will. But one thing is certain. No one ever really disappears. The past always comes back. The end. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more book breakdowns. See you in the next one.